Welcome back to the SSL Family Dad channel. Today we are going to lay out the new garden space and share a few tips and tricks on how to lay out a garden. If you have been following along, you'll see we have prepared all the soil. That we have put all of our leaf litter from last year is in here. We've spread compost throughout this. We've actually expanded the garden and tilled this through. And you can see we've got weeds and things growing in the raised beds. We're going to take care of that. We're going to plant out our raised beds and we're going to plant out all of this garden space. But the first thing we need to do is lay out our paths. I want to determine where I'm going to enter the garden at, where I'm going to be bringing things in and out. As I rake out these paths, I'm going to do this in a way that is also going to help my drainage and runoff, because I'm on a little bit of a hill. Now, if you have a flat space, you don't have to worry about this, but I'm also going to be creating kind of tiers and the hilly sections of this garden so that I don't want rain, water running straight down the hill. It's going to cause trenches, it's going to wash things away. I want to slow down and tier the ground and slow down the water runoff as much as possible. Once we get all of our paths put in and laid out here, I will show you how we choose what plants, what vegetables to plant where. How do we decide, do we run our rows north and south? Do we run rows east and west? Where do we put things that are going to trellis? Do we put those at the front, the back, the sides? How do we determine what things are taller, what things are shorter? All those things are going to determine where we plant what. But first, let's start with laying out the paths. So I have the main path laid out, so that's gonna run all the way across the garden right in front of all the raised beds. So that's gonna be, I usually make those paths about 36 inches wide. That fits a wheelbarrow in there comfortably. I'm not gonna be driving the golf cart through here. I'm not driving the tractor through here, anything like that. So that's comfortable to fit, to just fit a wheelbarrow or even like a small wagon or something if I wanted to do that for harvesting. That's all gonna be filled in with wood chips. So I've actually dug it in a little bit and it's gonna have about 2 inches of wood chips in there. And then we'll have a path that runs straight out of the garden here. So that gives me kind of a T, and then we'll be able to get in between all the raised beds. The rest of it will be real small paths. So on each side of this path here, we're gonna do our first planting. We're gonna plant corn. And this is running north and south. So north is actually that way and south is behind me. And then every row that I make throughout the rest of the garden for anything I'm doing row crops, it's gonna be one rake wide. And then my distance between tomatoes and peppers and other things like that, bush type things, is gonna be 1 rake wide. So I use the rake for measuring all the rest of that. This will also have wood chips here, and then I made these hills. Now this is pretty fertile soil. I raked up most of the compost stuff that was on the surface into these rows, and so this should handle our corn pretty well. This whole section here is gonna be all tomatoes, and this whole section here is gonna be all peppers. So let's get our first item planted here. Let's get all the corn in the ground. This is Golden Bantam. Planting depth 1.5 inches, so it can go in about to your knuckle, so you can push those seeds in that far.
A seed right here, so I'll put my finger in.
Go lay out all the seeds and then stick them in. Just start putting 2. You're doing a great job, honey. this way. All right, pretty much everything is planted. So let's go over the method behind the madness. I've talked a little bit about running rows north and south. So this is primarily in the northern hemisphere. The closer you get to the equator, or in the southern hemisphere, it is a little different. The sun moves differently and at a different angle in the sky. But here in the northern hemisphere, the sun is always going to be coming at an angle like this. So this is the north side of the garden where the fruit trees are. And then this is the south side of the garden. You know, let's say I planted corn right at the south edge of the garden all the way along here. I'm always gonna have, all day long, I'm gonna have a shadow behind that corn. In fact, the back side of that corn almost never gets sun, and anything I plant within a couple feet of this side of it's never gonna get sun either. When we plant the rows this way, like we did all up here, as the sun moves across the sky, they might get shaded in the morning. So this one comes up, it might shade the next row early in the morning, but it's going to get sun later in the day. So it spreads the sunshine out. Every angle of your crop gets sun, and nothing really shades anything. So everything has good access. We're looking at the garden from the north now. So I'm on the north side. These fruit trees are on the northernmost side, and my south side is down there. Now, behind me are a bunch of trees on this side of the garden. So I've made a few exceptions to my rule. But in general, if this were in complete sunshine and we didn't have any shade, you would want to put your tallest crops starting on the north side of the garden. They would have all your tallest stuff. All along the back edge here, you'll see a hill. This is all of our peas. This is our pole beans along here, and then more peas here. And this is going to have a 4-foot trellis that will be built on the back edge of this garden. So that's going to be all along the back. And then all of my rows are running north and south from there. Now, normally I would put my next tallest crops on the north side of the garden, but in my case I made a little bit of an exception, and what I did was I planted my corn on the south side because this is the sunniest area, as well as all my peppers and tomatoes. But to maximize the sunlight, as these grow up, they'll grow up 3 feet tall or more. Tomatoes could grow even taller. I have my aisle right on the back side of those, on the north side of those. So my aisle runs straight through here. So this aisle will be shaded, this path will be shaded throughout the day a little bit more, but I don't care because nothing's growing there, so it's not going to shade anything else. And then all of the stuff on the back edge of the garden, in my case, it gets a little less sunlight back here because it's shaded part of the day. And so I've got all my leafy greens back here, all the stuff that grows best or better or okay in shaded, cooler temperatures. Just a little side note, all of the pepper plants are in this grid right here. So this is all bell peppers of various kinds. Bell peppers like a more alkaline soil, so they like 7.5 or even 8 pH in the soil. So you can put a little bit more ash into the soil around there, which will raise the pH, and that's fine for peppers. all my tomatoes, which I started inside and had very bad luck with this year. So I've got some real tiny ones you can barely see down there. I may have to go to the greenhouse and get some tomatoes this year. The tomatoes like a pH in the soil of 5.5 or 6, and they do real well in a more acidic soil. And so down here I'm going to actually be adding, as these get a little taller, I'll be adding around all of these more composted manures and chicken manures right from the coop early in the season, and that will help to to lower the pH, raise the acidity in the soil, which the tomatoes like. Raised beds are the ideal place to grow root crops. Good for strawberries and other things too, but root crops are the best thing because I spent money on this soil. We have some vermiculite perlite in there. We also have some composted manures and some peat moss and sand all mixed together. And so this is a real light, fluffy soil. It's great for root crops. And so I have all my potatoes planted in here. This is a full potato bed. And then I have onions that are all on the back side of this. And then you saw me plant carrots. So this whole section right here is carrots, and this whole bed right here is carrots. Did something a little different than I normally do. Normally I use a square foot method and a square foot template to plant 16 carrots per square foot. I'm in a little bit of a hurry this morning, so I mixed all of my varieties of carrots together in a seed packet. I stirred them up, I sprinkled them throughout the entire bed here, and then I dusted them over and packed it down. And so we'll put the sprinkler on today and get this nice and wet, and that should hold moisture on those seeds and get them to sprout. All of our bush beans along the edge. Here we have zucchini. You really never need more than 4 zucchini plants. I have found they produce so much squash that usually that's plenty for anybody. I have some pumpkins I started inside that started to get leggy and weren't doing real well under the grow lights I had. If they die off, I'll plant melons in this area. And I also have a row of cucumbers along here, which I will trellis up or let them just kind of grow into this area. So this whole area here will be filled with vines. This will be this year's garden. Lots of work still to do. We have to get some wood chips brought in and wood chip all of the paths. So hopefully this helps some of you out who are looking to get some tips on laying out a garden. There's lots of different ways to do it, and I would love to hear from you guys, some of you expert gardeners out there who have had luck with maybe different methods or alternate things. Please throw that stuff down below. I'd love to hear from you guys and share that with everyone else that is watching. And of course, subscribe and tag along if you want to see how this all turns out later on in the season. Of course, we'll take you along for harvest videos and preserving food and other things like that. So you got to subscribe to get notifications when those videos are posted. Reach down, hit thumbs up for me. As always, guys, thanks for watching. Have a good one.